I will share the formula Buddha used to fight his negative thoughts sitting under the Bodhi tree. I spent 1 month studying Buddhism so that you don't have to. This is the same method Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh advised to millions of people, and he boiled it down to 3 key steps that us busy people can use to implement in our daily lives. The first step is the step that is by far the most important. When I was writing the script for this video, many negative thoughts were popping into my mind. I thought that my script wasn't good enough or that nobody will want to watch this video anyway. And that led me to waste so much time sitting down in bed, doing nothing. But then I remembered Thich Nhat Hanh's advice, and that was to observe your thoughts, but to not let them get a hold of you. And to illustrate this, I want to give you an example. Imagine you're standing at the side of the road and you're watching cars go by. So there's the classic cars, the Toyota, the Honda, and you see the occasional Porsche Ferrari. But in the end, you're just an observer of those cars. When you're watching them go by, you don't suddenly jump into them, right? No, because that would be car theft and you'd go to jail. And in that way, observing your thoughts is similar. You are simply a watcher of your thoughts, not a reactor. You see, there are 2 types of men. The first man is a slave to all his thoughts. Whatever his negative thoughts tell him, he instantly believes. Because of this, he has no control over his mind. And the second type of man thinks more logically, because instead of following all of his thoughts, he looks at them without judgment. If his mind tells him that he's ugly, he simply watches the thought without reacting to it. And even if his mind tells him something more positive, he just watches the thought without reacting to it. Who do you think ends up more fulfilled? It's actually the second man. Because if you only observe your thoughts without reacting to them, you'll end up happier. You'll end up more fulfilled because you make space for better decisions. When the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree to meditate in order to reach enlightenment, the demon Mara didn't think that he was worthy of gaining enlightenment. And so Mara tried to send him multiple distractions in order to keep him away from the meditation practice. The first thing that Mara did was send the Buddha a bunch of beautiful women, his 3 most beautiful daughters, to try and seduce him. But the Buddha never left the tree. All he did was observe Mara's temptations, but he still kept meditating. Buddha was a master at observing his own thoughts. Bro, it's so hot here. Okay. And so the first step Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh wrote for us was to first start by observing our own thoughts. And one of the things that specifically helped me at the skill of observing my own thoughts was meditation, and specifically something called Vipassana meditation. But I can't go over Vipassana without first explaining Samatha. Samatha means calm meditation, and the purpose of Samatha is to calm the mind by getting rid of a lot of useless thoughts. If you watch Hamza, the type of meditation that he teaches is Samatha. And that's because Samatha meditation is truly effective at calming your mind. Now, before practicing Samatha, you ideally want to choose a quiet place in your house or a quiet place anywhere. For me personally, I just meditate in my room. I find that it's easier that way. You want to sit up in a straight and comfortable position so that you don't fall asleep. Don't sit up slouched or don't lie down on your bed because you know you're going to fall asleep. Now, all you need to do from now on is close your eyes. And to begin the practice, Samatha can be boiled down to really a couple of steps. Follow the sensation of the breath as it goes in and out. When the mind is distracted from the breath, become aware of the distraction and return back to following the sensation of the breath. Now let's move on to Vipassana. Unlike Samatha, Vipassana's purpose isn't to calm the mind. That doesn't mean that it can't calm the mind, but the purpose of Vipassana is more about awareness of thoughts rather than calming the mind itself. So instead of returning back to the breath after you get a distraction, you watch the distraction, you watch the thought wherever it goes, as if you're watching a movie or a YouTube video. Think of your thoughts kind of like bubbles. When a bubble enters your mind, when a thought enters your mind, you watch that bubble. And when it pops, you simply observe it pop. And then the next bubble will arise, and you simply watch that too. Don't judge the thought for being good or bad, but simply observe these thoughts. And you do this until the end of your practice. However, what we should keep in mind is to always practice Samatha a few minutes before Vipassana. For me personally, when I practice Vipassana first, I find that my mind is more agitated, more rapid. My thoughts are still all over the place. But when I practice Samatha first, I find that my Vipassana sessions become better. I am more concentrated on the practice because, again, Samatha's purpose is to calm the mind. And you might think that, oh, Vipassana is just another meditation tip. this won't work for me, I don't want to do this, time to click off. But if you genuinely want this to work out for you, I really, really invite you to try this out for yourself. There are many successful men such as Iman Gadzi or the former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey that have tried Vipassana, and that's really because it has worked for them, and it truly does work. Now, I can really go all in with theory, but the best way to explain Vipassana meditation samatha is by doing. And that's why your actionable step for this part of the video is to do it with me, to practice with me. Do it right now. Don't make excuses. Try. Now, you want to start by finding a quiet place. If you can't, that's fine. You can still do the practice. Sit straight on a comfortable position, preferably on a floor, but if you can't, then on a chair. And close your eyes. We're going to do 30 seconds of samatha and 30 seconds of vipassana. I'll do it standing because right now it's hot in this place. I don't want to sit and everything. Breathe in from the nose and also out from the nose. Breathe in from the nose and out from the nose. Concentrate on just the breath. If your mind gets distracted, be aware of the distraction and return back to the sensation of the breath. Don't try to control your breath. Don't try to make it longer or shorter. Just be comfortable with what your lungs are trying to tell you. Now let's gradually move on to vipassana. Gradually shift your attention not to the breath, but to whatever your mind drifts off to. Watch your thoughts, but don't judge them. And when a bubble of your thought pops, watch out for the next one. Be happy, just observing your thoughts. You can open your eyes now. If you're a beginner, start with 3 minutes of meditation per day and slowly work your way up from there. And even if you are already an expert, it's always best to not have any expectations because meditation is supposed to be relaxation. And I find that whenever I just let it all go, whenever I let all the expectations go, I'm more focused and concentrated on the practice because I enjoy the meditation process. And another activity that really increased my awareness of my thoughts was deep journaling. And it's the reason how I finally created this YouTube channel after 1 year of procrastination. The way I do this is that almost every day I get a pencil and a notepad and I vomit down all of my thoughts. You can think of it sort of like tangled wires. There's no magic time limit that I use during my deep journaling sessions, but like tangled wires, when wires are tangled, you try to untangle them. And the more that you untangle, the more that you write, the more that your thoughts become clear. And that's where I stop, when my thoughts are clear, when the wires are entangled. But honestly, all I can do is share how great these activities and experiences are based on my own experience. Even if you spend just 7 days trying these activities out, you'll surely benefit a lot from it. And at least you can say that you've tried practicing. I feel like meditation and journaling have been said many times, but sometimes it takes just one person to explain it in a different way that will make you finally get up your seat and start taking action on these activities. And I honestly hope that I can be that person for you. And if you already meditate, you already journal, but you don't want to get into the habit of observing your thoughts in your day-to-day life, then I'm sorry to tell you, but this video will be useless. Because at the end of the day, you can spend 6 hours meditating each day without fail, but if you can't observe your thoughts outside of the meditation session, then the session won't do you anything more than just plain relaxation. But after becoming aware of your negative thoughts, there is one thing that we in the masculinity space often overlook, which really should be one of the first things that you do. Many of us get easily affected by our negative thoughts. And so we turn to addiction. I'm not only talking about drugs or alcohol, but I'm also talking about the hidden coping mechanisms that we have in our daily lives that we escape to whenever we are too overwhelmed by our negative thoughts. The problem is that these easy pleasures are actually bad for us in the long run. They might give us short-term pleasure, but long-term, they're going to do damage to our health and well-being. When we spend hours playing a video game, we eventually get bored of it and now want a more violent game, a more fast-paced game. And this cycle continues on and on until we develop an addiction to these easy pleasures, which makes it all the more difficult to find joy in the things that we have found joy in before. And I really think that a lot of this comes from us being too scared to face our negative thoughts. We see these thoughts as something bad, and so when we get them, we instantly try to remove them. And what better way to forget about all your problems, all your negative thoughts, than through consumption? We like to make our minds a battlefield. And when the negative thoughts come, we try to shoot them down. But we know from our world's history of war that shooting never gets resolved by shooting. When a country's man fall, they always come back with more men. And the same really goes when we try to remove our negative thoughts. More negative thoughts will keep coming. If you look at paintings of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree with Mara's temptations all around him, he was never depicted as a man putting effort. If you looked at his face, he was always a peaceful, smiling man. And because he was a human, he understood that to live as a human means to endure everything that the human experience has to offer, both the good and the bad. And so the Buddha was able to resist his negative thoughts, to resist the temptations of Mara effortlessly. If you've ever tried floating on your back in a pool, the more effort that you put in, the harder it is to float. But when you surrender to the water and let go of all the tension that you have in your body, then you float effortlessly. And that's why the second step is to embrace all of your negative thoughts. Relating this back to my story, when I was scripting this video and observed my negative thoughts, it was only natural that more negative thoughts would start to arise. So that's why it was time for me to put my second step into action, Thich Nhat Hanh's second step. And that was to embrace my negative thoughts. And to do it, I took a page from the playbook of the Buddha. He smiled at the temptations of Mara. I smiled at these negative thoughts too. And instead of making the thoughts my enemy, I simply considered these negative thoughts as my friend, and because of that, no effort was required. This next step that I'm about to share with you is the most neglected, but is also the most important step of them all. When I was younger, my dad and I would agree on one thing: the messy state of your room, the stress that you get when you don't clean your room, is just a state of mind. He didn't like to clean his room, and I didn't like to clean mine either. My mom would always go in my room and ask, "Why is it so messy? Can you go and clean it?" And I was glad, because my dad and I would say, "It's just a state of mind, nothing more." But growing up, when I was in my mom's room, I found this book lying around called Make Your Bed. And I saw that it was made by this guy from the military. And it was only a short read. So I decided to read it. I got hooked and started reading more of it and more of it. He taught about how making your bed instills discipline and order into your own life. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I decided to try it. I didn't know how to make my bed. So I went on YouTube and started searching for videos until I found this one girl who taught me how to make my bed the way that they do it in hotels. And for a while I struggled, but in the end I was able to make my bed. And I'm not even joking. The moment that my bed was made, I noticed a drastic change in the way that I view my life. And it had this domino effect, which also translated to other aspects of my daily life. I now had the motivation to straighten up my posture and to clean the rest of my entire room. And from that moment on, I started to regularly clean my room. And I never thought that cleaning your own room was a state of mind ever again. And the same really applies to our thoughts, because we can follow the two steps. We can observe our thoughts, we can embrace our thoughts. But if we don't calm our thoughts, our negative thoughts will still take hold of a large part of us, because a large part of it is still in us. After the Buddha had observed and smiled at Mara's temptations, he knew that he had to do one final thing. Observing and embracing was fine, but now he had to calm the beast, which was Mara, down. He had to prove to Mara that he was worthy of enlightenment. According to Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, Mara said, "I know you have practiced, but have you practiced enough? Who will witness that you have practiced long and hard enough? Who will testify that you can gain enlightenment?" And at that moment, the Buddha touched the earth with his right hand and said, "The earth will testify for me." And suddenly the earth trembled and appeared as a goddess, offering him flowers, leaves, fruits, and perfumes. Earth looked directly at Mara, and Mara disappeared. Now, we obviously can't just touch the ground, touch the earth, and expect the goddess to manifest out of the ground to remove all of our negative thoughts. This was the Buddha's way of calming down his negative thoughts, of relieving his negative thoughts. But we should have our own way too. And that is why the third and final step of this 3-step protocol is about calming your negative thoughts. And the most foundational teaching of Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh is the teaching of mindfulness, the teaching of enjoying your life in every moment. And that's exactly what I did when I was writing the script. In order to relieve my negative thoughts, I celebrated the life that I was living right now. I appreciated the fact that I could make meaningful videos that could potentially help other people. I was grateful for having 2 legs that can walk, for having 2 arms that can still do activities. And if you're watching this video right now, that means I have succeeded in following the Buddha's formula. The earth has given us unconditional love. It provided us with so many wonders of life, because every day we have 24 hours. Every year we have 365 days. We have 195 countries. and over 8.7 million different species of animals. We have 380,000 known species of plants, and they're all here for us to enjoy. They're all here for you to enjoy. And we're even luckier because we're still alive, and we won't be alive forever. When you are mindful, you genuinely appreciate even the hardest of tasks. When you wash the dishes, when you do your homework, it nourishes your mind. You feel grateful actually doing your math test because you know that you are still alive, because this moment isn't forever. You might think that this is selfish, you're prioritizing your own happiness over others, but it's actually selfless, because when we become mindful, we become more considerate in how we treat other people. And so we want to make this a consistent practice, because I can tell you to be mindful, but if we don't actively practice it in our daily lives, it's not going to work. And so the way it is practiced is by using something called a Kung Fu sheet. And Kung Fu is a Vietnamese word which means daily practice. If you go down to the first link in the description, you're going to see the Kung Fu sheet. It has basically 7 columns from Monday to Sunday. And down the columns, there are going to be different sections for different tasks. You can go edit those tasks. And what you do is, let's say it's Monday, you rate how your mindfulness was for a specific task, let's say waking up, from 0 to 90%. If you were mindful a little bit, then you can rate 50%. If you weren't mindful at all, then you would put a 0%. But it's important to be humble with this, because we might think that we're 90% when we're actually 50%. But don't take this Kung Fu sheet too seriously, because again, mindfulness is simply a celebration of our life. And if you're angry at your Kung Fu sheet because during Monday you weren't mindful, that's not what mindfulness is all about. And if you do everything that I tell you in this video, but you neglect this third step, this video will honestly be useless. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Because learning how to enjoy your life is honestly one of the most important skills as a man. Because if we can't be mindful, we are always going to be running after a desire, and we won't even be appreciative if we even get the thing that we want. Life doesn't last forever, so the best thing that we can do is to enjoy it while it is still here. And so that's exactly how you fight negative thoughts and win. If you like this video and want to see more in-depth breakdowns of the teachings of the Buddha, drop a like and subscribe. And by the way, YouTube thinks that you should watch this video. Let's see if they are right.